Hello and welcome to the Why We See Movies podcast. I'm your host, Ron Houghton. Joining me as always, we got Darren.
Hello, listeners!
And Paul.
Hello.
And Ivan.
What's up?
Today we're going to be doing a summer recap show where we'll chat about the summer's hit and misses, some of the big TV finales, and the upcoming fall lineup. Later on, we'll do our rant and rave segment. But first, let's see what's going on inside the entertainment world with...
You, on the mark!
Hi, boys.
How's it going?
Ivan, you're back?
Yo. I am.
Haven't seen you for a while.
Yeah, it has been.
Because of that, I'll start the news off with something you'll be interested in. I'm sure you've heard all about this standalone Joker film that the DCU is planning.
You know what? I've heard so many things about the DCU lately. I'm just gonna wait and see when it's actually happening something.
It sounds like they want to create an entire standalone series of films that have nothing to do with the DCU that they've already started with these last few films.
That might be a better idea than what they've been doing.
So, supposedly they're looking for Leonardo DiCaprio to star in it, which, of course, Jared Leto is a little confused by all of this. He's like, what is going on? I thought I was playing the Joker. Todd Phillips is attached to it, the guy who did the Hangover movies, and he wants to create a really dark, violent version of the Joker, completely unlike anything we've seen.
One of the best things about him is the fact there is no origin. It's just so many different things.
Just like in Dark Knight when you don't want to know how I got these scars and changed it up. That's what makes the character interesting.
Part of my ignorance, but is that because throughout the comics and the various media there have been so many different origins, or that his origin has always been clouded in mystery?
The only one that people like is the one that Alan Moore did, The Killing Joke. Even though it's not canon, most people kind of look at it as
that's why you guys were so looking forward to The Killing Joke animated one, I guess. So there's no official origin to him like Spider-Man has. Or
no, it's kind of like he's told so many different people different versions
just
that
can't believe him.
Yeah,
I see. Okay,
it sounds like they're floundering to me.
We'll see.
Like to me, this almost seems like they're already trying to abandon the idea that they had for this.
Just make a bunch of random movies,
right?
Yeah, I don't know.
Or the fact that they had this darker tone set up earlier with the first few films, like with Batman versus Superman, and they said, "Oh, we're going to make edgier films." And now with the huge success of Wonder Woman, which is much more like a Marvel film, you could say, maybe they're trying to hedge their universe towards that. And if they want to still having darker films, they can create these standalone movies. It seems like they just want everything without putting the work in for any of it.
Yeah, and doesn't sound like they really know what they want or know how to get there. I don't know. It seems like every day there's a new rumor about what the new project is, like a Joker and Harley Quinn, and then just Joker. Birds of Prey or whatever.
Well, even for a week or two span there, it was every single day. Ben Affleck is gone from Batman. No, Ben Affleck is in.
They've got how Justice League turns out.
They've got the spaghetti attitude. Throw a ball of spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah.
Right. And the mentality that these studios have these days of having to set up so many dates, like years ahead in advance.
You can't designate your opening date with no script, no idea, no story.
No cast, no director.
And they want to lock that weekend and beat the other studios to it. But then the other studios are going to change too. So it's ridiculous.
Right. And in other behind-the-scenes news, besides DCU having a lot of
issues,
turmoil,
the Star Wars universe is having its fair share of that as well. Colin Trevorrow has been ejected as the director of Episode 9. Have you guys heard that?
Yeah.
Is this good news for you guys? I know you, Darren, you weren't too big a fan of Jurassic World.
No, I love Jurassic World.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay.
I did.
And nobody here has seen his follow-up, that Book of Henry.
Book of Henry. It sounded intriguing to me, but the reviews were so atrocious, I'm not interested.
Right. Yeah, I guess it has come down, from what I've heard, of more than just creative differences, but personal conflicts. And
I heard that too.
I guess he's been riding the ego train.
Yeah, that's what I've been hearing as well.
So I'm thinking is what Kathleen Kennedy maybe needs to do is not hire all these directors who've got a definite vision. Maybe it's the wrong term to use, but hire more yes men, hire directors who are going to follow her vision to the T and what she wants, because it's not working out with all these directors who have more of an auteur approach to Star Wars.
Well, exactly. And especially, we've talked about it before, but Rogue One, they had to rein Gareth Edwards in to the point where people talk about how much of Rogue One was actually what Gareth Edwards was going to deliver, right? So
this is now, the fourth project, really. Rogue One, Han Solo, Episode 9. Josh Trank. I don't even know if he was attached to anything before he was fired.
It was like the Boba Fett movie, rumored to be anyways.
Rumored, okay. Yeah. So it's not working with these young guys.
Although Rian Johnson, who's the director of Episode 8 coming up, he's, of course, the director of Looper and Brick. Supposedly things have gone smashingly with him.
Which is good news, because I like his work up until now quite a bit.
For sure. And you could say he's a pretty creative, innovative, visionary director.
Brick was a great film.
But it really seems like if you're creative and a visionary, as long as you see their vision, then you're good. But if you deviate from it...
Well, I'm sure that Kathleen Kennedy doesn't have a problem with creative talent. She's having a problem with people who are stepping too far outside the boundaries of what they've set up here. A lot of these guys have been writer-directors that they've hired, like Rian Johnson has been writing the Star Wars movies. And he came out and said that he's been allowed to input creatively all that he wants. You know, he's had no problems with Lucasfilm.
Maybe he's just playing the game, seeing that is the case.
Well, if you want to direct a Star Wars movie...
Yeah, you got to play ball, right?
Sure. No matter what kind of career you have, it's not going to be bigger than Star Wars.
No, it's the biggest franchise there is, so you better not play too far outside of the field.
Lots of things shaking up there. It seems like the Marvel Universe is... it makes the whole debacle with Edgar Wright and Ant-Man look like just a hiccup.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, compared to what's going on with everybody else. And that gets to the next point of news. Have you heard that Disney wants to set up its own streaming service?
Yeah.
Yep.
And that they're going to be pulling all of the Marvel, Star Wars, Pixar films from Netflix and else.
Did you hear the thing that came out today about that?
No.
Apparently they need to have 32 million subscribers to break even.
The Disney one?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Sounds
It
doable.
doesn't seem ridiculous to me, but...
Well, it could have something to do with how much money they're also investing in it, because I heard that they're investing a lot of money for original content, so it's not just their back catalog, but they want to have new stuff to draw people in. Exclusive stuff that you can only get here.
Absolutely. Which seems to be the way all of these streaming giants are going. I don't think it's going to hurt Netflix's bottom line anyways. I would imagine that there's not too many people subscribing to Netflix for Star Wars and Marvel titles. You know,
but not alone.
The big fans of those movies have seen them probably long before Netflix
but then
ever gets
Daredevil, all those guys are staying, right? Because Netflix is the one actually producing it.
Yes, for sure. Because that's a separate agreement with Netflix actually producing them.
My problem is that will this lead to every studio, every network, every production company doing the same thing?
Well, that's pretty much what's going on. Even Amazon spending a ton of money on their own original content.
But that's fine, because they existed as their own entity. But as Paramount, as 20th Century Fox, as Universal, as Warner Brothers,
CBS is
going to be $10 a month for all of us for all these different services.
How many streaming services can one person subscribe to?
They all have 100 years of movies.
I'm sure Fox
to draw
does
from.
with their television.
Not to mention, they've all produced a ton of television series over the years.
Because there's no way everybody can sign up for every single one.
Cable alone is expensive enough, let alone another $10 here, another $10 there.
I have Amazon Prime, so I can see that stuff. They really need to kind of ramp up their new stuff, because some of the older stuff for movies especially, it's just like C horror movies. Not even B, like even worse than that.
Yeah. It might be a rights issue, because you do have branched off streaming services like Shudder, which is specifically geared towards horror and has a really good library of specifically horror movies, so they might not be able to get the rights to something like that.
That's the thing too, when these companies, when they try to negotiate their agreements, they want as much exclusive content as they can, so Shudder might have exclusive rights to the...
But you would think Amazon would have the money to be able to get some of the best stuff out there.
It's amazing the amount of money that these services are spending. Remember when I heard that Hulu was spending $80 million to acquire Seinfeld? And Jerry came out and said, there's not any new episodes. This is just the old stuff.
But if they think that Seinfeld alone is going to get them enough viewers...
That's what I mean. It's amazing.
They would be worth it, right?
So look at that, $80 million for a show that's 25 years old, and they're willing to spend that. So, we're just entering such a strange new world here with all of these services that are going to be getting very expensive, I think.
In the next few years, we'll find out who's doing it properly and who's going to be weeded out.
Yeah, but even if you select 2 or 3 of these services, spending $30 a month, still much cheaper than cable.
Right.
We'll see.
We will. Okay, that was it for news. Why don't we begin our summer recap show?
Sure.
Right. What did we think of the summer of 2017? I thought it was okay. Not a fantastic summer for movies. There wasn't any films that I really loved.
No, nothing that's going to, for me, be one of my all-time personal favorites, but there's a lot of very good movies, nonetheless.
For me, there's one that sticks above the crowd, head and shoulders above the rest.
And my guess would be Wonder Woman.
Nope.
War for the Planet of the Apes?
Nope.
Baby Driver?
Ding, ding, ding. Yep. Baby Driver, heading above. It was original. It was kind of out of the blue for me, which probably helps. And it wasn't formulaic. So for me, that's the summer movie I really like the best.
Unfortunately, still one of the ones I haven't been able to get to.
No, it's really good. I agree. It's nice that they actually took a chance and that it has been such a huge success. And that talking about sequels now, which would be like the first sequel Adam Wright ever...
Edgar
Wright, my bad. That he's ever done.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty interesting.
I loved characters, so it'd be nice to see a sequel, but Edgar Wright for me doesn't make enough movies to warrant a sequel. I'd rather see him do something original.
Yeah, I agree.
Baby Driver could definitely be considered one of the bigger hits of the year. Can't say the same about the rest of the summer schedule. This was the worst summer in years. Box office for August was down 33% from last year and 15% overall. So we're looking at the lowest box office figure since 2001 in 16 years. Yeah. Wow. And some of the lowest attendance rating in over 25 years. Fewer people are just going to the cinema than ever.
They keep blaming, I've heard studios are blaming Rotten Tomatoes for this, which all that site does is just take general consensus of critics. But I also find it's like, well, if you put out shit movies, people aren't going to want to see them.
For sure. You could definitely say that the audience has had it with sequelitis, and franchise fatigue is definitely setting in for everything but superheroes.
I don't know if it's franchise fatigue. I think it's the fact that Transformers, they've been just getting so much worse that when this one came out, people just didn't care.
Are you going to see this next one?
No, I saw the last one. I paid $5 for it when I saw it on Blu-ray, and I felt ripped off how bad it was.
Right.
And that was the case for a lot of people. And I heard, like, even in China, their drop from 1 week to the next was huge.
Yeah, all the Transformers movies, the last few, have made over $1 billion. This one stalled out at $604 million worldwide. So that's a huge drop. It went down over $100 million domestically. Can we say that this might be the end of the Transformers?
No, because they're filming the next one.
It's amazing.
They're doing Bumblebee.
$600 million is considered disappointing.
For how much the movie cost and to market it, it's probably not great.
And it's $400 million less than the previous one.
Yeah.
But even same thing with Pirates, right? But once again, people watched the last one. It's not very good to come back with this one.
Once again, boils down to the movie itself. Both of those movies, no, I haven't seen them, but they did not look like worth seeing.
Yeah.
No, once again, Pirates is another film that was saved only by foreign box office. It had a huge decline domestically. So once again, what do you guys think that the reasons are that this was such a lousy summer for the movies?
Well, there's, of course, we've been talking just now about streaming services, and then there's downloads and so on, and that has been contributing to smaller audiences in the cinemas for a long time, and quality of the movies on top of that. Yeah, I'm not surprised there's a decline.
I would say ticket prices as well, because it keeps going up, and you go to a theater, by the time you buy a ticket, you buy snacks or something. I mean, a bottle of water at a theater now is $5.
Exactly, yeah.
So
a hot dog is $6.
Yeah.
Popcorn is $8.
Let's say you go to like couple of movies a month, you're spending like, over $100.
If you're buying food for just a couple, it could be $40, $50 in a night. And add on top of that, the inconvenient times for non-3D showings of movies. The theaters are trying to force us to pay that extra premium, which a lot of people don't want to and aren't going to. Yeah, it's going to hurt ticket sales.
Do you think movie audiences have anything to do with it?
Maybe
the audience you're sitting with?
Yeah, that's definitely been an issue with me as far as sitting in an audience and going, my enjoyment of the movie has greatly diminished because of the assholes I'm sitting around. Some of them are my friends, Ivan.
But if it's a movie I want to see on the big screen, I will still always go see it on the big screen, regardless of how I think the audience experience might be.
Right.
And sometimes the audience experience can really suck, but the entertainment value is there. I'm still going to pay the ticket.
For now, to go to a theater and pay those prices, it has to be a movie that I want to see in the big screen. Like, especially for drama movies. Like, do I really need like the big surround sound experience just to watch a movie where people are talking all day?
I would argue that every movie looks better on the big screen, no matter what. And I like the movie going experience. Prior to having a family, I'd go to almost once a week to the movies. And it doesn't have to be a special effects extravaganza to look great on the big screen. But once all these other factors start coming in and money becomes limiting and so on, then, like you say, you have to start choosing, and certain movies are going to lose out when it comes to the theater experience.
I found a sweet spot of time that I'd say probably the last 4 or 5 movies that I've gone to for the podcast. Early in the day on a Saturday, everybody's out doing their running around, and the theater's only partially full, so the chance of having one of those people that's going to kind of disrupt your experience is significantly less.
As long as it's not a kid's movie.
That's what I tried to go to is those weekend matinees, but I don't think I even told you guys this because we recorded the Apes podcast, and then Ron, you were away for so long we didn't get together, but when I caught up with War for the Planet of the Apes, and it was a Saturday matinee, but the two gentlemen to the right of me smelled like they've been working in the backyard for 6 hours apiece in 30-degree weather. It was unpleasant.
Yeah.
They smelled like apes?
They smelled like apes, you could say that. Please wash before you go to the movies, folks.
Yeah.
You got the 4D experience.
I did get the 4D.
Exactly, yeah.
But even
Did you have to pay
Smell-o-vision,
extra for that?
indeed. It was smell-o-vision.
But I have had bad experiences even on those early mornings, because for Beauty and the Beast, once again, it was a morning one on a weekend, and this lady was there with her kids that didn't care about the movie. They were running up and down the aisles.
You never know what you're
throughout
going
the
to
movie. And this other kid over here had light up shoes, and the entire time it was just so annoying.
Maybe they should invent like a paging system that you can just press a button from your seat and an usher comes and appears and can I help you, sir? Yeah, you fix that.
But you'd never finish an entire movie because it'll be the entire time you'd be a button being pushed.
Maybe they need theater babysitters where there's actually somebody that sits in the theater and has to monitor people's behavior. Like, really? Have we come to that?
Have you guys seen any of these kind of crazy hybrid playground theaters that they have in the world?
No.
They have slides set up and almost like a little playground at the bottom by the lower seats, in front of the screen for the kids to play while the adults are up higher in the theater watching the movie.
Really?
It's hilarious.
Wow.
But you would think that those kids still run around would be noisy and...
Oh, absolutely. But I mean,
yeah.
it's perfect for kids and parents who don't mind that experience.
Well, it's kind of like they have those mom and tots showings, right? So, or strollers and stars or whatever it's called, where it's for moms to take their kids out. And exactly, the kids can be as disruptive as they want, and it's not affecting anybody else because every other kid in the audience is not paying attention to the movie. So I guess there's something to be said for that. But yeah, it's a roll of the dice anytime you go to the theater. You never know what you're going to get.
Oh, exactly.
Do you think that there's anything that the theaters can do to change the flow of what's happening, or is this just...
They're desperately trying. Have you ever done one of those surveys that you can, win whatever movies for a year or so on? The questions they ask on these surveys, I don't know, they're so inept at knowing what the audiences want. Did you enjoy the commercials before the movie began? No.
I don't want to see a commercial.
What a stupid question. Right. Who enjoys the commercials before a movie? I understand it's part of the revenue that the theaters make and so on.
Yeah.
But when they're at that level of asking the audience, which ones did you enjoy? They just are clueless as to what audiences are going to the movies for.
I think the theaters are trying to do stuff as far as this past August, they made the entire month what the cheap price on Tuesdays was going to be, just trying to get more butts in the seats. And they didn't do a very good job of advertising it because the only reason I knew was because my wife told me.
I was going to say, which theater was that? Because I had no idea.
It was all of them, I guess.
Come again? What are you saying?
You didn't hear about this?
For all last month, any day of the week, you could go and pay prices.
Tuesday prices. And they did an awful job. Like I said, the only reason I knew is because Melanie told me.
Yeah, it's news to me. I would have made an
I have a Scene membership. You would think that they would have emailed me.
Well, actually, my wife got email for it, but it was in the last week when we were too busy to go and watch a movie.
Yeah. So maybe the idea was there, but the word of mouth wasn't. So how badly did they want people to take advantage of it?
Yeah, well done, Cineplex.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah, there's a couple movies that I would have gone back to see again, or at a reduced price. Maybe I'll go see this movie, right?
Sure, Baby Driver, Dunkirk, I still haven't had a chance to see. I would have made a bigger effort in August to have been able to get a chance to see them for cheaper.
Mm-hmm. They're also trying with the more comfy seats as well, which is nice. So you can actually be really comfortable when you're in there.
Oh, besides the playground one I was talking about, in other places of the world, I don't know if you've seen that, but they have actually beds that you can lie in while you're watching the movie. Every row that you go in, it's about 8 or 9 beds in a row, and you can have a slumber party, and you haven't seen that either?
No.
Sounds like a good way to get lice or bed bugs or something.
Yeah. Or an STD.
Yeah. Well, there's some theaters as well where it's they actually have lockers for people's phones, so you don't bring them into a theater, so you can't be on your phone the entire time.
But the counterpoint to that, I heard there was actually showings where they were going to encourage people or not discourage people from being on their phone. I'm like, that would be so distracting. Even somebody pulling their phone out for 2 seconds to check the time, it takes me out of the movie because it's that bright flash in a dark environment.
No, I remember that. It was a big theater chain down in the States, and then the backlash against it was so strong.
Good.
Unless it's just strictly advertised and ticketed as a cell phone screening.
Yeah. I think there's advantages to seeing things in the theater. Like I've said before on this podcast, seeing, for me, my favorite animated movie, Iron Giant, in theater and actually hearing the soundtrack and hearing everything as it should be rather than just on TV. Granted, I don't have a top-of-the-line home theater system, but like you said, Darren, just the experience, you're totally immersed in that experience, and I don't think you can ever replicate that.
For me, it was Scorsese's Hugo, which had so many clips from old silent films in it, and seeing these old silent films, which I'd seen clips of numerous times, but on the big screen, they looked phenomenal. That gave me the knowledge that, I mean, not that I didn't suspect it already, but just everything just looks so much better on the big screen, and that's the way they should be seen if you can.
And I'm not arguing that it's not better. I would say lately, 80% of the times where I've gone to a theater, I've gotten annoyed by other people.
Oh, for sure, I understand, yeah.
When I went to the last Bond movie, there was an older gentleman, like probably his mid-60s, that was on his phone for the whole movie, and I'm like, yeah, you can't stereotype who the problems are in the theater. Yeah. It's everybody. I'd be curious to see just what the general attitudes of theater-going audiences, how they've changed over the years, because seeing on YouTube not that long ago, they had the reaction to the Death Star blowing up, like an actual audio recording of it, and listening to, you can hear people talking in the theater and reacting, and I was thinking, right now, the way my mentality is I would find that really distracting, but clearly that was...
It's not a new problem, is what it comes down to,
Yeah, people have always been awful. I remember when I was 7 years old can't remember how old I was, at the first Superman screening, that the usher had to calm me down because I was running up and down the aisles pretending I could fly. Kid, go back to your seat. So, yes.
But once again, you're a child, and that's to be expected when you get really excited.
Sure.
This comes down to terrible parenting, really. Ron, your
parents are terrible.
Well, it's just one of those things, like if you bring your kids to a movie, you gotta control them. They just look at the movie as like, oh, this movie's my babysitter for the next couple hours while I do whatever.
My kid's gonna run around the aisles and I'm gonna be on my phone. It's gonna be a great 2 hours.
Yeah.
Okay. Shall we talk about some of the bigger summer hits? Wonder Woman, of course, is still the leading champ for the summer. She's reigning.
Didn't Spider-Man just surpass her?
Globally or domestically?
I think I read today, 850.
Yeah, because it did 100 million in China just like last week. So it was blowing past expectations. No, domestically, Wonder Woman is still number one with 410. Spider-Man right behind with 327. Guardians did 389. So the big three movies of the summer are all superhero films. The audience is not waning for these movies at all. Make a good superhero movie and we're still going to turn out.
Or even a mediocre
sequel
to a good superhero movie.
Right. Yeah. Well, I really enjoyed all three of these. Spider-Man and Wonder Woman I really, really liked. So I was happy that these movies are doing well.
I was glad that Wonder Woman did so well, particularly.
Yeah, those two both deserve it. Guardians, in my opinion, less so, as you guys know. But
right.
And I'm on board with you, Dex. I mean, out of the three, for me, Wonder Woman is clearly the best movie of the bunch. Spider-Man was good, enjoyable, and Guardians was a pale comparison to the original.
Good news for fans of Wonder Woman. If you didn't hear it just today, Patty Jenkins signed the deal to direct the sequel.
Yeah,
nice.
Deal, okay.
She's getting, I think, $7 to $9 million, which will make her the highest paid female director in history. I think that's well deserved.
She deserves it.
She did a great job. She only got $1 million for the first one, so that's a pretty good jump.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of the credit rests on her shoulders for
Definitely,
sure.
Yeah.
So good for her. Another big hit movie I have no plans on seeing was Despicable Me 3. It did 259 domestically, 746 globally for just over $1.6 billion haul.
That's a movie.
Have you seen any of I saw the first one.
I saw the first one.
Thought it was okay.
I might have even seen the second one, I think. Yeah. I can't remember for sure. But yeah, generally enjoyable, if unmemorable and unremarkable. People love those Minions, though. And I find them spectacularly lame.
Me too. Yeah, it must be just little kids running.
Oh, I have adult coworkers who have Minions on their desks. And
is that right?
Wear Minion toques when they go to their car and are working at their desks, embarrassingly enough.
I mean, I enjoyed the first two.
Yeah, there's some good material in there, but nothing
the Minions are just kind of, I don't know. It's one of those that are killing the joke, that people are still liking it.
With the $1 billion in the
it's
bank.
Hard to argue.
Exactly. Yeah. We're definitely haven't seen the last of them.
Keep giving people more of what they want, whether we like it or not.
But once again, for those kinds of movies, it's the fact that it's the kids when they go see it and the parents have to go with them. So they're getting those numbers regardless. Like even adults don't want to see it. They got to take their kids. They got to go, right? So
yeah, that was a surprise. Another big hit that we've already mentioned was Dunkirk. did surprisingly well with 183 million domestically, 309 globally for almost a $500 million worldwide haul. Pretty good for a movie that the studio had little hopes for, really, and audiences are obviously still looking for what would be considered almost Oscar bait, like a Christmas film delivered in the middle of summer.
Yeah, it was one of the better reviewed movies of the summer. So,
and I think a lot of that also just comes down to Christopher Nolan. He's that current director where people like he puts out a movie, people go, "I'll see it. It's Christopher Nolan,"
and that he has that cachet for me. Whereas, as I mentioned on the Dunkirk podcast, I'm not typically a fan of war movies. I mean, a good movie is a good movie, but he is the reason I was anticipating seeing this, and he's a visionary, and I'm always happy to see his vision.
Yeah, absolutely. The more I think about the movie, I think the more that I actually really liked it, and can't wait to see it again.
Yeah, I really liked it, and I'd like to see it again just because now that I'm knowing exactly what
now that we know what the movie is, we can just watch it for
what it is.
Exactly. Okay, so we move on to some of the misses of the year and have some fun with that.
Sure.
Sounds delicious.
Okay, I know you got nobody here at this table. Do we know anybody who went to go see King Arthur, Legend of the Sword?
I do not know anyone who saw it.
I do.
Do you?
Yes, and it's somebody that I don't really trust their judgment in movies, so I'm not surprised they won't. They go see a lot of movies. Well, when it comes with a precursor of it's a mix of these 5 movies that you vaguely like, then I'll just skip it, thanks.
Yeah, it only did 40 million domestically for 150 worldwide total.
Yeah, I am not a Guy Ritchie fan. I haven't seen any of his movies post Snatch except for the Sherlock Holmes movies. I'm just not interested, and this just looked like Guy Ritchie straight through. And
were you a fan of the Sherlock Holmes, though?
The first one was pretty good. The second one was a steaming pile of Keanu Reeves.
You can almost kind of see what they wanted to do, maybe put him in charge of reimagining a different, older idea and bring
for sure, and that could have worked, but they had no script for the second one at all.
And apparently they planned 6 movies around this, too.
Oh, yeah, this was supposed to be a whole series of films, these King Arthur movies.
Well, they killed it once again with for the King Arthur.
For the King Arthur.
Oh, wow.
To the point they spent serious money on reshoots to get it right. Yet no one had any interest in this.
Lost City of Z was the Chris Hunman movie to see this year.
Charlie
Hunman.
Yeah. I'm a huge King Arthur fan. I love John Borman's Excalibur and stuff, and still I have no interest in seeing this. Maybe it's that King Arthur movie that came out a few years ago that with Clive Owen. That was pretty awful too.
I enjoyed that one.
But this just looked like 300 meets Pirates of the Caribbean meets Excalibur, right?
And I actually really liked Guy Ritchie's first 2 movies quite a bit, and then he's just kind of fallen off for me.
But while we're on the subject, they're also doing another reimagining of Robin Hood as well now too.
Well, they were going to, with Ridley Scott's Robin Hood, try to launch a bit of a franchise, I think, there, but that was not popular. Yeah,
this was going to be with the guy from Kingsman, Tarat
Egerton.
Yes, and Jamie Foxx as Little John, and
probably more akin to the Kevin Costner Prince of Thieves type of version.
I'm not sure. They're just
than the Russell Crowe one.
It's almost like a Robin Hood Origins movie or something.
Right.
And then
it's just taking a name and hoping it sticks. And
are they really just scraping that bottom of the barrel?
They've been scraping that barrel since the 30s, and they're going to continue to do so.
Yeah. Right.
Maybe the audience has forgot about it. It's been a decade. It's time for another one.
Okay. Another one of the big bombs of the year. I actually do know someone who saw this one. Me. That would be Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets, directed by Luc Besson. This is a huge flop. It only did 40 million domestically, 171 globally for about a 211 million global haul, which is, I think, a little less than the production budget. So it's not making its money back.
Isn't its domestic box office in France?
No, it didn't even do well in France, unfortunately.
I wanted to see it just because it looked like a visual feast. I wasn't expecting anything.
Yeah.
I didn't expect anything story-wise, but to tell you how quick it left the theater, like my wife and I were going to go see it maybe 2 weeks after it was released and couldn't find it other than in one out-of-the-way theater.
But Clara Delevingne, it's just, I don't know, I don't think she's a good actress for her, so she's not a draw.
Yeah, and Dane DeHaan is the actor. For me, that is the big problem with the movie, is the 2 leads. They stink. They are horrible, and they give off no chemistry. A movie like this needs, like The Fifth Element needed a Bruce Willis to kind of anchor everything, and this movie is desperately needing. I didn't hate it, that's for sure. I was never bored through it, but at 137-minute running time, it's way too long for such dull characters. You replace the 2 leads in it, and I think the movie would work. That's how bad they are.
That's all I've heard. Every review I've read, it's like the movie looks amazing, but the actors suck.
And Luc Besson is another director who's so distinctive in his visual sense and his style, but it's so hyper stylized that if like you say, if you don't have a Bruce Willis to anchor it with something you can latch onto, it's just, why watch just 2 hours and 15 minutes of style?
And you can almost see kind of his French sensibility clashing with the lead performances, and it just doesn't mesh at all. And it's too bad because, the plot it's based on a long-running series of French comic books I'm not familiar with. So the story, they have lots
to draw from.
It's not a problem with the plot. The Fifth Element kind of had a hokey plot too, but I really enjoyed that film.
Me too. And that's why I was so excited for this one, because of,
For sure,
because of the Fifth Element. I was kind of like, I want to see this because I like Fifth Element so
I remember seeing the Fifth Element. A lot of people saying the movie was terrible, and I was like, I really liked it.
Like, what are you talking about?
I thought it might be a similar experience.
The only knock on that movie is Chris Tucker.
Yeah. Chris Tucker is way better than the two leads in this one.
And not saying a lot.
It sure is.
And at least it was Chris Tucker before he became Chris Tucker. It was the first taste of what he was to become. But
I wouldn't say avoid it at all costs when it comes out on Netflix or something. If you have a decent system at home, it's going to look great. So check it out eventually. But for a theater experience, skip. Yeah.
If there's
you don't have a choice now.
Yeah. So if there's an orchestra only mix, maybe it's better to do that and just watch it. Don't listen.
Sure.
The sound, music and sound effects. Yeah.
So, that one definitely flopped. And another movie that we brought up earlier, which didn't do as well as it should have, or was expected, was War for the Planet of the Apes. Mm-hmm. It only did 145 domestically, 224 globally, for a 369 total. And when you look at that for globally, Rise of the Planet of the Apes did 481, and Dawn did 710.
Wow.
So we're talking at a huge drop
from for the second one.
A trilogy that was only gaining momentum, in my opinion. It's like, I can't understand anybody who saw Dawn that wouldn't want to go see the next one.
Truly.
And I even heard that they said if they release it now in August, the movie would have done so much better because there was nothing else to take away its numbers.
That's probably a good point. Darren, you finally saw it.
Yeah, I did.
And were you a fan of it?
I liked it quite a bit. It was a great end to the trilogy. After seeing the first two, I kept thinking I didn't want this to end at a trilogy. I was enjoying these movies so much, I could go for more. Such a perfect ending. That's it. That's all. I don't want to see more. You'd ruin this story to continue past this third one. And if you're a fan of the first two, if it's Blu-ray or streaming, whatever, you got to check this one out. And I think people will.
And do you agree that the movie might have been a little mismarketed with showcasing kind of War for the Planet of the Apes compared to what you got?
It's not War in the same scale as, audiences might think they're going to get. Maybe not the best title for the film.
Talked about that on the podcast. We've said that they got the names for all of three mixed up.
It's a great title, but I don't know if it was perfectly described the film, but I don't know if you're disappointed in the movie just because of its title.
No, it's still solid. Still one of the best movies I saw all summer.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah, I'd agree.
I think everybody's going to catch up with it eventually.
Yeah,
exactly.
But it's unfortunate that it suffered. Like if we were saying, if it came out right now, that movie would have easily made that money back.
For sure. It was an absolutely horrible August.
Yeah.
And it could have cleaned up. As far as I know, the studio's planning a big Oscar push for it. So they have high hopes for it later in the year. Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
Speaking of August, one of the biggest bombs of the month was The Dark Tower, the big Stephen King adaptation. It only did $48 million domestically for $107 million total globally. Wow. Yeah, it's not going to make any of its even $60 million production budget back. And I hear it's terrible.
Yeah, in the last week or two leading up to its release, I remember some of the press and publicity they were releasing for it. It doesn't take place the same as any of the books. It's more of a reimagining of the books. Or there was another train of thought that said, it's more like it takes place after the books. And I think they cut the movie together, had no idea what they had, and just tried to cobble together something, made some press release excuses for what they had, and threw it at the screens. And it was, those trailers got me excited with the Morricone music and the great visuals. They really did have some cool looking shots in the trailer. I'm disappointed. This had the potential for a great franchise. It's a great series of books, and that's another Hollywood screw up, I guess.
And you had a decent cast with Idris Elba and Matthew McConaughey. Now, not having read the books, I don't know how well they fit the character. I mean, obviously, I know Idris Elba's character is a change in race from the books, but to me, that doesn't matter as long as the performance is good. But
it doesn't matter, but the one thing it does kind of screw up, and I'm total advocate for any race can play any other race or whatever, but in book 2 of the series, an African-American character is introduced, a female character, and she's kind of got multiple personalities, some meeker personalities, some very aggressive, defending the black race type personalities, and Stephen King touches on some racial issues starting in the second book, but when you've got your main character already as African-American, I think it diminishes the impact that those racial issues coming on could have. Clearly, they're not going past this first movie anyway, so who cares? And Idris Idris Elba is a great actor, so well, too bad he wasn't in a better movie.
And Matthew McConaughey's his character is actually one that's across all the... He was in The Stand. Basically, every single Stephen King novel where he has like that one main villain that's like super evil, it's the same character.
Like Needful Things and all that.
No,
well, there's multiple crossover Stephen King stories. The main ones would be The Stand, The Dark Tower. What's the one he co-wrote with Peter Straub?
Talisman?
The Talisman, yeah, that's it. And Eyes of the Dragon would be the main ones where they all kind of take place in like different realities and different ways of viewing the earth and so on. But whenever you have the villain whose initials are RS, and sometimes it's different, but they're all kind of variations on the same villain. And absolutely, yeah, it's too bad that there's such a potential there of multiple crossovers and great books becoming great movies, and they messed it up.
Yeah.
Another proposed multiverse that actually might be happening. Ivan, you did see The Mummy.
Yeah.
That was one of the bigger bombs of the summer domestically. It only did 80 million, but it did 330 million globally for a 407 tally. Almost enough to justify its continuance.
And I heard they are going forward with it.
I think so. Yeah. Tom Cruise, once again, is a true superstar still around the world.
Well, I think with him, he's also built up that reputation for his last number of movies have been really good. Tom Cruise usually makes good movies.
Yeah, I think it's more than just the last few movies. I think it's the fact that this guy's been a global box office star for a very long time.
I'd argue some of his last movies were kind of stinkers. I mean, like the Jack Reacher sequel.
Well, Jack Reacher wasn't that great, but I liked the first one. I liked Edge of Tomorrow and Oblivion. And
Oblivion, I have very strong, just for different opinion with you on that than if you liked it. But Edge of Tomorrow, I mean, that's the thing. Tom Cruise has some great movies under his belt and some stinkers, but for me, he's almost becoming the next Nicolas Cage in that he's settling into a routine, a niche where, I mean, Tom Cruise, just like Nicolas Cage used to do things like Wild at Heart and Leaving Las Vegas, Tom Cruise used to do Eyes Wide Shut and Magnolia, and now it's just action pick after action pick. Sure, he's taking over the big paychecks and he knows his audience, but
even his next one kind of looks like it's going to be more character-driven, American Made.
I hope so.
The Batman movie. Yeah, it looks okay.
Well, he will have some action, of course, but it seems to be more kind of driven also by character.
I hope it's good, and I think I said this earlier. Even with all the negative press that The Mummy got, I'm still really interested in seeing it, and I still have hopes for this monsterverse that Universal wants to do taking off.
I think it's going to be one of those. If the next movie isn't done well, they're screwed because, like you said, this movie was saved by Tom Cruise, his name.
That's it. Yeah.
That's it. Mm-hmm. So the next one, if they don't have that name to pump up the box office, it's another.
But then on the other hand, I had heard that Tom Cruise's meddling with the production-wise might have hurt the film too. So
because that director didn't have the balls to tell him no. That deal.
Didn't have the clout to tell him no.
Exactly.
When Tom Cruise is the producer on the film, you gotta do what he says.
And is the next one Jekyll and Hyde with Russell Crowe? Is that the next slated one?
I think the next one is The Invisible Man with Johnny Depp, or it's The Bride of Frankenstein. Maybe.
And I heard they want Angelina Jolie for that one.
Yeah. Exactly.
If they do a good one, I'll see it, but I'll skip The Mummy in the meantime.
Yeah. I'll let you know. It's out. I think it's out next week already. Yeah.
But once again, like with Johnny Depp, also
on disc,
he could be hurting it as well, right? Because a lot of people just they don't want to pay the money because of his personal problems.
But that's domestically. Like we're talking globally. Johnny Depp and Tom Cruise are still huge names. Yeah, and that's what counts. Okay, that's it for hits and misses. There were a few sleepers this year. A movie called Girls Trip. That's with, I think, Queen Latifah was in that.
Yeah. That one, I think Jada Pinkett as well.
Right. Yeah. That one did 130 million. Blew away expectations to become, I think it snuck in for one of the top 10 films of the summer.
Wow.
Quite a big surprise. Did a lot better than that Rough Night, the one with Scarlett Johansson, which is kind of the white girls version of it, I think. There was another sleeper that did pretty well this year. I haven't caught up with it. I've been dying to see it. It was called The Big Sick. Have you guys heard of this?
Yeah, it looks fantastic.
I've heard great things about it.
I do know one or two people have seen it, and they say it's touching, it's romantic, it's really, really funny. I can't wait to see it myself.
Written and starring Kumail Nanjiani. He's, have you guys watched Silicon Valley?
Nope.
I've seen a little bit here and there.
Yeah, he's on that show. Yeah, it's supposed to be the true life story of how him and his wife met. And do you know any of the...
I know a little bit. Right. I've seen the trailer, and you can glean a little bit from that.
Yeah, anyways, it's supposed to be terrific. It's supposed to be hilarious and heartwarming. That movie did really well. It was only made for a couple of million and did over 50. So nice to see a little breakout comedy. do really well.
And I bet you that'll have some really good legs on Netflix or whatever service picks it up.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, that was it for really the summer hits and misses. Anybody see anything else this summer we want to talk about?
I did.
Ivan, what'd you see?
I saw The Hitman's Bodyguard and Logan Lucky.
I really wanted to see Logan Lucky. How was that?
I enjoyed it.
This is the Steven Soderbergh movie. It takes place, the kind of a heist movie at a NASCAR event.
Has nothing to do with Wolverine.
Right. Channing Tatum,
Adam Driver, Daniel Craig, Riley Coe. She was also in It Comes at Night. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed it. I kind of felt that the whole heist, they kind of really jumped into it quick around the heist. It was also one of those things where you kind of get to the heist and they do all these things where you know how these heist movies are, is where in the end something happens. You're like, how did they get to there? And then later they start showing you scenes of what they did, right? Mm-hmm. But,
of course, Soderbergh did the Oceans movie, so it could be similar to that.
Lines. Right. It was pretty interesting. I liked it.
So what'd you think about The Hitman's Bodyguard?
I guess it's right. It was Samuel Jackson being Samuel Jackson and Ryan Reynolds
being Ryan Reynolds.
A more serious Ryan Reynolds.
Okay.
But it was one of those...
But it's a comedy, though.
Yeah, it is. And I heard that it wasn't supposed to be until they came aboard and kind of changed the way the movies was. But it was just one of those movies, kind of over the top. Complete opposite personalities, put them together in like a road trip, and then stuff happens, right? Every once in a while, you kind of get off guard. A couple of scenes that I really enjoyed, but for the most part, you pretty much know the entire plot of where it's going.
Okay, sounds like...
I'll be skipping it.
All right. Okay, why don't we move on to the world of television? We're just briefly going to talk about a few series that have finished up. I know not everybody at the table is as caught up as I am. First, let's talk about Twin Peaks. I'm sure, Dex, that you're all caught up with it.
I am caught up.
Without doing any spoilers here, what'd you think of the season as overall?
I loved it. I'm a big David Lynch fan, and this was an 18-hour David Lynch movie. It was great. I loved every second of it.
As we all know from our earlier podcast, you've been waiting 25 years
I've been waiting more than half my life for this.
And that actually paid off.
Yeah, I thought it was fantastic. It was frustrating at times, and for the people who are maybe not as much a David Lynch fan as they are Twin Peaks fans, I know there was a lot of disappointment, a lot of frustration, and I can understand that. I won't argue against them.
Mm-hmm. It's funny, for me, almost some of the criticisms are some of the things I will say I loved most about it.
Yeah.
I was laughing out loud at how self-indulgent some of it was.
Yeah, for sure.
I've never seen anyone even dare to be that.
Oh, it was gutsy. I can't believe Showtime let him expand it keep his 18 hours instead of the 9 that they wanted, but hopefully it paid off. There's still no discussions yet about a season 4. I'm sure there will be once they, really sit down and talk about it. I think they want to let this sink in a little bit. I've said a couple times over the last few weeks that when people say that their favorite character in Twin Peaks is the Log Lady or Audrey or Pete Martell or whoever, what they're really saying is my favorite character besides Agent Cooper is Audrey or the Log Lady or whoever. So for those people, Agent Cooper was absent for a huge chunk of this season. I know that they're disappointed, and I can feel that. I understand. Sure. It was much more of the Dougie Jones show than the Agent Cooper show. But once you settle into knowing what it is, Dougie Jones is such a great character, and I loved his storyline. This was a great show. I look very much forward to whatever David Lynch has for this franchise next.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Each episode, there was hits and misses for some episodes, but I was never bored, and some of the episodes were as avant-garde as anything I've ever seen.
Oh, for sure. 2 or 3 episodes that were just an hour of mind-bending unbelievability.
For sure. I'm not going to say I completely understood a lot of it.
Oh, hell no.
By the time that the finale finished, I was like, boy, should I watch the finale again or the entire 18 hours?
Yeah, I can't wait.
No idea.
I'm just going to buy it on Blu-ray and watch it start to finish again. And I mean, there's so many loose ends. I hope there's another season that's still on its own terms.
For sure. And
18 hours of great television.
And I love the finale. I thought it was great.
Yeah,
I think
I agree.
The 2 characters involved, the show should end.
The last 3 hours were fantastic. Yeah. And you're right. Yeah, those were it's a critical way to end the series and beautiful. And because of that, we need a season 4 because those are the characters that Twin Peaks hinges on right there.
You got it.
I'm curious to see where it goes because I haven't finished it. I'm 8 episodes in, just about halfway. And I've enjoyed the journey so far. And maybe I've embarked on a fool's errand trying to wonder how certain little threads are going to wrap up. I should know better. I've seen the first 2 seasons.
Yeah.
I know they're not going to, but my logical mind is maybe thinking too much. And much like I said on the Twin Peaks episode, where at some point I just had to submit to the ride and see where it takes us. And I've really enjoyed what I've seen so far, and I'm looking forward to seeing, like I said, where the journey takes us.
That's the best way to put it for season 3. Submit to the ride and go with it, and I think you'll really enjoy it.
Because the tone is it's ever shifting. Like, it starts right at the beginning of the season. I thought, okay, we're going for a little bit more of a darker horror element. And then it loses that, and it's constantly shifting, which I think speaks to what you guys say, where it keeps it interesting. It's not just more of the same.
No, it's really never what you're going to expect it to be.
Yeah.
Can't wait for us to do a full podcast on the entire series when you're caught up, Paul, and we'll go to town with it because there's so much to talk about.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, and Game of Thrones just wrapped up. I've been hearing a lot of backlash on this season, that it is maybe being a little too formulaic and everything's falling into place. I'm kind of like, that's what I was expecting with this season. It's that's where the narrative is going. That's where I've been waiting for the show to get to. And I don't mind that there's not maybe as turns and surprises as maybe other seasons, because we're done with that. I think now the show is settling in and we're kind of just on an express train to the end.
Yeah,
it's down to the nitty gritty.
There's only so many places the story can go right now. And he still threw a number of curveballs throughout the season too that, I don't think the audience was expecting.
I should say, I love the season as much as any other season.
Agreed.
For sure. I don't think there was any lack of anything.
I agree.
Okay.
Very tight storytelling. I was never bored. I was always waiting for the next episode with great anticipation. So
yeah, a lot of jokes are being tossed around the internet with how quickly the story moved this season, which I can understand. You're cutting it down by 2 or 3 hours of television. Sure, you have to make some concessions there. For me, I had much fewer problems with how quickly they got from A to B than some of the character motivations and character behaviors that to me didn't quite ring true. I will say Sansa and Arya in particular, I thought weren't always as smart as they should be when they're pretty smart characters.
Sansa, you can always count on her to be
a little more gullible, but
smart as a stick.
Right, doing everything.
But Arya shouldn't be as easily duped as she was for at least 1 or 2 episodes in this season. Still great.
Yeah.
Wonderful television.
And there's quite a wait until the last season, too. Like, we've only got 6 episodes left, so might have to rewatch the series to get amped up for the last
I heard that
season.
the production schedule alone on the next season could be 10 months.
Ooh.
That's massive. Like, even a huge Hollywood film, it's only like 2 or 3. So it just shows you the scale that they're going to be working with. It's going to be giant. I can't wait.
Yeah.
I loved it, and anybody who says that there's been any dip in quality is nuts, in my opinion.
And the big meeting between all these characters coming together, I read a few big criticisms on the internet about that, and people were bored and thought it was dull. We've been waiting 6.5 seasons for some of these characters to meet face to face again, and it was incredible. It was great.
I think it's from people who don't want the show to end.
Yeah.
They can see it starting to finish off, and they're getting angry at it or something.
They want another season of chess pieces moving around the board, whereas there's not as much of that. There's posturing, but I think you nailed it, where you're like, it's not really the time and place for twists and turns as much as it is just to progress the story itself.
Right. Yeah, I thought it was great.
Yep, me too.
Okay, from Twin Peaks and Game of Thrones, we're going to take a little dip. Did everybody get caught up with The Defenders?
I did. I watched it all.
Me too.
First day.
Paul, you?
Yep.
Darren, I'm not going to bother asking.
Don't bother.
He's waiting for us to
get past
to give this review, which ain't going to get him excited.
Nope.
For me, I thought it was a bit of a waste after all the build-up and we've been getting through for all of these shows and all the hours I put in with Jessica Jones and Iron Fist. And I like Jessica Jones, and I shouldn't say that, but 13 hours of Iron Fist, the slog to get through to get to this is not worth it.
No.
I enjoy all the performers in this. I think everybody does a good job. Mike Coulter does a great job, and Charlie Cox as Daredevil is great, but the plotting in the show was just no good. I didn't even like the chemistry once the characters met up with each other. Sigourney Weaver was a bit of a waste as the villain. Anyways, I wasn't a big fan.
I liked it better than Iron Fist, which...
Yeah, okay.
I mean, you can't do worse.
Yeah, step up.
There was a lot that I liked in this. I did enjoy when they all came together and kind of had that chat. But I did think this movie should have had much, much better action. Especially when you get these guys together and start kicking ass.
Totally.
It should have been like Daredevil level action, not like Luke Cage.
They went for the cheap in a big way. Think about all the times that these people are actually using powers.
Yeah.
You can count them on one hand in the show.
Iron Fist like twice.
Yeah.
And to me, as much as Iron Fist was a slog to get through, I kept thinking, okay, well, maybe the character will be better in a supporting role where he's not the focus and you can play off of other characters. I thought he was just as much a waste in this as he was in his own series. Like, he's always the idiot. Like,
totally.
You keep thinking, how can this guy be this stupid? And he's continually setting the bar lower.
Yeah.
I do not understand the mentality of the writers writing this character like this.
It's frustrating. And I liked it more than you did, I think, Ron. I'd say out of all of them, it's probably on par with Luke Cage for me.
Yeah, I'd put it maybe
in around there. Like, I enjoyed it enough, but there was certainly, I was glad it was only 8 episodes. Like, I was worried when I thought it was 13 and my wife said, no, it's 8. I was like, oh, thank goodness. And not once did I say that in any of the Daredevils. Not once. It was not as good as it should have been. Like Darren said before on previous podcasts, he was looking forward to it because it should have been the small screen equivalent of the Avengers. Well, it wasn't even the small screen equivalent of the Super Friends.
Right. You're right. Yeah.
No, and I agree. It's like they made Iron Fist super arrogant and super ignorant at the same time. He was just... And even made fun of him in the show. They're like, he's the immortal Iron Fist, and he'll tell that to anybody that'll listen.
Yeah.
Because that's all he does. I think they even did a counter how many times he called himself the immortal Iron Fist.
Like they were actually writing him as the fool in the show. Yeah. I don't understand where they're going with that.
I did like that one when they had him tied up and him and Luke Cage were kind of chatting, or when they first met each other, they're like, so, you punch a dragon's heart. That kind of little back and forth. I thought it was a bit entertaining, not...
Bits and pieces.
Yeah, bits and pieces.
Right.
Yeah, and Sigourney Weaver was and the hand. Seriously, what the fuck did they do?
They're supposed to be this, major force that should be striking fear, and they just come across as disposable henchmen that, whatever, we'll beat them eventually.
And their end game was just so pointless.
The actual plot of what they're doing with dragon phones and under the city, it's so bad.
And then the whole the thing,
not even B-movie stuff. It's worse than that.
Well, even the stuff with Elektra, right? Like the whole Black Plague thing. They made it sound like total badass. Which I don't understand is she's kicking Luke Cage around. He's flying everywhere. And yet Iron Fist has to use his powers to take him down.
None of it made sense.
No.
Well, thanks, guys. I'll skip it.
You made the right choice. Okay. Let's wrap it up with the television section. Ivan is going to be stepping away for a moment, and let's move on to the fall preview, where we're going to chat about some of the fall releases that we're excited or maybe not too excited about. Okay, let's begin with the month of September. Next week, coming very shortly, is a movie I am hotly anticipating, and it's just like Blade Runner coming out later, where I am refusing to see even an image from this. I haven't watched a trailer or nothing. And this would be Darren Aronofsky's new film, Mother, with Jennifer Lawrence and Javier Bardem. All I've heard is it's Aronofsky's take on kind of a Rosemary's Baby type of thing. And that's really all I need to hear. I'm a big fan of Darren Aronofsky. I love all of his work. So that one sounds pretty great.
I saw the trailer for it before seeing it.
Oh, yeah.
So close your eyes and plug your ears because it will be before that. And I would say, it looks extremely interesting to me, but I worry that it's given too much away.
The trailer does?
The trailer.
Oh, I'm glad I haven't seen anything.
There's certain things that, I don't know. For me, a trailer, I think should whet your appetite and leave you wanting more and not truly explain to you what's going on in the movie. And I feel like the trailer lets you in on what's really going on a little too much.
Yeah, I watched the trailer a few days ago, too, and you might be right. At the same time, I'm kind of hoping that maybe they're just toying with us with the trailer and giving us a little taste of maybe we think, or let the audience think this is what it's going to be about. But yeah, Ron, it looks great. I agree with you. I can't wait to see this. One of the interesting things I've read about it is Aronofsky only uses 3 types of shots in the movie.
Really?
That maybe there's some exceptions, but almost without fail, everything is either looking at Jennifer Lawrence's face, 1, or 2, over Jennifer Lawrence's shoulder, or 3, a point of view shot from what she sees. Which sounds like an interesting way if you can keep that up for 2 hours. But the trailer is very intriguing, and advanced reviews are very interesting and divisive. There's some people who are not...
That's what even gets me more excited.
Not fond of it, and there's people who are raving about it.
When I hear a film is polarizing, it's like I think, it sounds even better.
Yeah, I just hope I'm not on the fountain side of Aronofsky's over when I watch this, because I want to like this movie. But
me and Darren could do a whole show just on how much we disagree on the fountain. Maybe one day. You would like to see that too, eh, Paul?
Yeah, like I said, the trailer looked intriguing enough that I was hoping whatever they were showing us was just throwing us off the scent a little bit. But yeah, it looks really good.
Yeah, I thought so too. The following week after that brings us Kingsman 2, The Golden Circle. I really enjoyed the first one. I thought it was pretty great.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised how much I liked the first one.
Me too, because the trailers for the first one just looked like a rip-off of James Bond, like a update of James Bond for the younger generation.
Formulaic, but hipper and more clever. Look how clever we're being, and yet it was really clever in a lot of fun and interesting ways.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's almost like it's got almost a childlike wonder to it. It's got a lot of elements like that, like the girl with the blades on her feet.
Yeah, a lot of high energy action and just really memorable scenes, and
that church scene is still one for the ages,
and the pub scene too. There's just so much to like about
that stuff,
and the end of the movie too.
Yeah, Matthew Vaughn is back as director, and the cast: Taron Egerton, Julianne Moore, Channing Tatum, Jeff Bridges, and Colin Firth.
Have you guys seen Eddie the Eagle?
I have seen it.
Taron, am I saying it right? Taron Egerton?
Yeah.
I can't even believe it's the same actor. When you watch Eddie the Eagle and Kingsman, he's so good as Eddie the Eagle. And I mean, we've all grown up in Calgary. We know the story of Eddie the Eagle, and sorry for going way on the side here, but
kind of looks like Bubbles on skis for people that don't know who he is.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, that movie, if I can just give a quick rant and rave for it, it started out kind of obnoxiously, and it hits absolutely every sports movie cliche in the book. And by the end of the second half, I was anyways just wrapped up in it. I was rooting for the guy, and my heart was in Eddie's plight and his story, and part of that might be just knowing his story from experiencing the 88 Olympics firsthand, but great actor, and I look forward to Kingsman 2 for him.
Good. I'm glad you enjoyed Eddie the Eagle. I did not. Okay.
Didn't land?
No, not for me. Wiped out.
Thanks, Paul.
The week after that is a movie, we could bring it up for 2 seconds. It's the remake of Flatliners. Do you remember that movie from the 90s?
I liked it as a teenager and liked it enough.
That was, except that it came out, I think, in 1990. It almost made my list of liked at the time for our best of 80s show. And not so much
doesn't
today.
Quite hold up.
No.
We'll see if they bring anything new to the table, but yeah, it doesn't look like it. Okay, so that's it for September. A few strong movies in the next few weeks anyways. Coming in October, as I mentioned, right out of the gate, Blade Runner 2049. Still have yet to see an image from it. I cannot wait to see this movie. You guys know how I feel about the first one.
Once again, close your eyes during the It trailers then, because there's...
Maybe I'll just show up late.
Yeah, just show up late.
Stand in the lobby.
Yeah. You guys planning on seeing this in the theater?
I'll watch any Denis Villeneuve movie at this point.
Cool.
I'm going to rewatch the first one to get up to speed, but yeah, I want to see this. Actually, seeing the trailer for this has made my wife want to see the original because she's a lot younger than us, so that was never on her radar. But yeah, I'm definitely going to see this.
Cool. Otherwise, I'd be doing the podcast all by myself because I'm not missing that one. Next in October brings The Mountain Between Us. That's kind of an adventure movie with Kate Winslet and Idris Elba. Looks kind of like Alive. Small plane crashing in the mountains.
There's some potential there. Yeah.
It looks okay. It looks a little bit run of the mill.
Yeah.
It's 2 good actors.
Yeah.
And then on the 13th, the Netflix film. I always like that. Don't have to leave the house. It's called The Meyerowitz Stories. It's from writer-director Noah Baumbach. I'm a big fan of his work, and stars Adam Sandler, Emma Thompson, and Dustin Hoffman. I don't really know anything about this project. I just like Noah Baumbach's work. He did The Squid and the Whale and Ben Stiller movie called Greenberg a few years ago. I was a big fan of. He does these kind of quirky, independent type movies.
Yeah, I enjoyed both those two. I didn't love them, but I enjoyed them, and I'll be interested in this movie too.
Yeah, for Netflix.
Yeah, for sure.
Another one called Goodbye, Christopher Robin. You guys heard of that one?
Yeah.
It looks pretty good. I kind of liked Finding Neverland quite a bit a few years ago. That was the J.M. Barrie story with Johnny Depp and the origins of Peter Pan. I think if this movie could pull
something similar.
Yeah, it sounds pretty good.
There's potential as well.
And then another one coming out later in October looks really good. It's called Suburbicon. It's directed by George Clooney and stars Matt Damon, Julianne Moore, and Oscar Isaac. Looks like it takes place in the 1950s. As Matt Damon is kind of a everyman who goes through, I think, some sort of family incident. I don't know. I think the trailer kind of gives it away that something's happened to his wife, and it's somewhat of a revenge tale.
And that's written by the Coen brothers, correct?
It is written by the Coen brothers. And Grant Heslov and George Clooney have co-writing credits. But yeah, it's a Coen brothers script.
Coen brothers script, George Clooney directing.
It's got a very Coen-esque feel to it, the trailer, for sure. I think it looks darkly comic. Something
perfect.
Yeah.
The minute the Coen brothers are involved in it, I'm instantly interested. So
yeah, George Clooney, I'm a pretty big fan of his directing work. His first Confessions of a Dangerous Mind was his first one, and then Good Night and Good Luck I was really loved.
I've enjoyed all of his films as a director, except for Monuments Men was pretty unspectacular.
The one he did before that, Leatherheads, kind of a football movie.
Oh, you know what? I never caught Leatherheads, actually.
That's probably his worst one. I didn't enjoy it very much at all. He was trying to do kind of a 30s screwball thing, and it didn't work at all.
And being a football fan, I skipped it, which tells you
exactly. He also did one called The Ides of March.
Yeah, The Ides of March was very good.
Philip Seymour Hoffman, great cast.
Yeah, that was an outstanding film.
Really look forward to seeing that one. It's Coen brothers, Clooney, Matt Damon.
Almost can't go wrong.
Yeah,
let's hope.
Gotta hope so. That's at the end of the month, 27th. Oh, along with on the 27th as well comes a movie called The Square. It's a foreign film. It won the Palme d'Or this year. It's directed by a man named Ruben Östlund, who made a film called Force Majeure. It has Dominic West and Elizabeth Moss in it. Have you guys seen the trailer for this?
No.
I want to check it out. It's a pretty interesting trailer. It's kind of all about avant-garde artists and how ludicrous some of their projects can be and how seriously we take them or how seriously we don't take them. That's kind of the basic premise of it. It looks very interesting.
No, I'm interested. You had me at Force Majeure. That was a fantastic film.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and the premise sounds really interesting. Being an art lover and having studied some art history, this is very interesting.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah. On the other end of the spectrum, a movie I have no interest in seeing is Jigsaw. They're revamping the Saw franchise.
Just what we need.
I went off the off-ramp on the Saw movies after the first one.
I'll admit, I've seen 0 Saw movies, and I'm proud of it.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the first one because I had 0 expectations of it. It's a guilty pleasure of my wife's and I's. We like horror movies and that, and I mean, I don't take them too seriously. They're, you kind of know what to expect, and they're okay, but yeah.
How many of them have you seen?
I think I've seen 3 or 4 of them. And
I think they went up to 5 or 6, right?
I think so.
Wow.
And apparently this one wasn't even supposed to be made. The last one was supposed to be the last one, and then this one kind of came out of nowhere. So
reimagining of a franchise? What? I'm surprised.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, that looks like the big kind of Halloween release for the year. We'll see how it does.
I'm sure it'll do enough. I'm sure it's low budgeted enough that it'll make a ton of money back.
I'm sure it's going to make a fortune,
Yeah.
Not for me. And then in November, right off the bat, we got Thor Ragnarok. Any chance we're going to be talking about Thor on the podcast?
Hopefully we'll be speaking positively about it because
I sure hope so.
The more I see about it, the more I'm a little nervous
I've become
about
more
it.
and more nervous and less and less interested with each clip, each image I've seen. So I hope so.
And Taika Waititi has come out and said he doesn't really care how well the movie fits into the Marvel universe. He just wants to make a good movie, which on some levels that's very good.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I'll take it if it's a good movie. So.
Yeah. The more and more I hear about it, the more and more I'm not so enthusiastic about it.
I'm staying super positive for it. We'll see in November. On that same day, as another movie, looks very interesting. It's called Last Flag Flying. It's directed by Richard Linklater. Big fan of his. And it's a semi-sequel to Hal Ashby's film The Last Detail with Jack Nicholson. Remember that one, Darren?
Yeah, that's a great film.
Jack Nicholson played a sailor and Otis Young as his partner, and they're transporting Randy Quaid. He's been convicted of something, right?
Yeah, I can't remember. It's military prison.
Right. You're right. They're MPs, and they're kind of transporting him to a stockade or something.
Yeah.
And they want to give Randy Quaid's character, who's kind of a young innocent, you might want to tell.
He's he's not very worldly.
Okay, you're right. And they want to give him fun 48 hours before they drop him off to jail. So this new movie is kind of a semi-sequel to that. It's based on a novel from the same writer who did The Last Detail. And this one is going to star Bryan Cranston in the Nicholson role, Lawrence Fishburne, and Steve Carell. And it's the reunition of these characters 20, 30 years later as they're dealing with one of their kids being brought back home from Iraq. These 3 actors. Wow. It's a pretty great
I haven't heard of this film already. It sounds very good. To make a sequel to an old Hal Ashby movie, that just sounds like a very interesting idea, whether it works or not.
Yeah, I just heard about it a few days ago and high on my list for November releases.
For sure.
Last Flag Flying. We talked about Murder on the Orient Express on the podcast already.
I think we're all very excited about that one.
I still have avoided the trailer, but I am curious about the movie.
I don't need to worry. I already know.
Well, once again, if you're going to remake something with a well-known twist, change it up. So who knows if it plays out the same.
I don't know what Agatha would think of that.
Well, Kenneth Branagh might not care.
Right. And then the next week after Murder on the Orient Express, we have Justice League, which, just like Thor, I think we're all staying very positive on that. As much as we can be.
Sort of.
Once again, I would like a good movie, but...
The last trailer has given me a little bit of pause for worry, but I'm willing to give it the benefit of the doubt.
I'm hoping the Joss Whedon effect is going to... they've done a lot of things under the shroud of the studio in the last month or so. We have no idea what's really even going on with this movie, so let's hope.
I just hope that it's a cohesive vision and that it doesn't seem choppy and fractured and that you can see where Joss Whedon's influences were and Zack Snyder's influences were. Hopefully they mesh together well.
Yeah, it could be a weird experience with those
I'm not
two.
expecting it to have the heart that Wonder Woman did, but I hope it's at least as much fun as Spider-Man Homecoming was. You know, just that kind of pure kind of fun energy to the whole film.
It looks very bombastic. Like it looks very loud and in your face, which if done right, that's fine.
I have to like it more
like
than
you
Batman
say, as
versus
long as it
Superman.
has the fun. I mean, the Avengers movies, the Captain America movies exude that comic book fun. The joy you get from superheroes
from reading a comic book.
And I don't know, we've done this to death, but the DC movies haven't done that so far, except with Wonder Woman.
Exactly. We're staying hopeful. And then the next week after that, on the 22nd, is Pixar's second release of the year after Cars 3, and it's called Coco. Have you guys seen the trailer to this?
I haven't seen the trailer. No.
I have. It looks
like,
interesting.
It does. First animated movie I can think of that stars a Latino lead character. It's interesting. It seems like almost kind of... do you know that old Robert Johnson story at the crossroads of the kid who makes a deal with the devil and learns how to play guitar? Is that kind of the gist that you're getting from it?
It's more or less what I got, yeah. I think
kind of
it was
supernatural elements to
it. Yeah, I think so. I just saw the 30-second teaser, and I think that was enough that my curiosity was piqued, and I didn't want to see any more.
Yeah, I don't know anything about it. That sounds intriguing.
A lot of it seems to take place around the Day of the Dead in Mexico, and it's got some really interesting imagery to it.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say is that, it has the potential of being very vibrant and very luscious imagery for sure.
So nice to see Pixar step out of the sequelitis that they've had going on for the last few years.
Especially when they are developing the next Incredibles movie, at least you're getting something a little bit...
That's the sequel I've been waiting for.
Oh,
Cars 3.
absolutely.
Nobody was waiting for Cars 3.
For sure, but at least this is, a little more tantalizing, so...
Yeah.
And then in the same week as that is a film I think you might be interested in, Paul. It's called Molly's Game. Stars Jessica Chastain, and it's written and directed by Aaron Sorkin. He's written a lot of movies over the years, but this is his directorial debut.
Interesting.
And you might want to check the trailer out for that. It looks pretty interesting as well. A true story of a woman who was running a high-stakes underground gambling network for high-profile celebrities and rich people. It's one of those trailers I turned off halfway through because it was kind of spoiling too much. But Aaron Sorkin involved.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of his.
Yeah, those are some good credentials.
From Moneyball, Social Network. If he's writing it, I'm seeing it. We'll see what kind of a director he is.
Yeah, for sure.
But should be interesting. That's called Molly's Game. That's it for November. And then in December, right off the bat, first week seem to have my favorite movie coming out each month. But this one is getting tons of press and accolades, and every festival is playing at. People are cheering. And this would be Guillermo del Toro's new film, The Shape of Water.
Yeah, I can't wait for
this.
It's
getting some great advance press. After Pacific Rim and the Scary Red Snow.
Don't mess with my Crimson Peak. I love that movie.
You loved it?
Did you?
I love Crimson Peak. I made my top 10 that year.
Ron.
Wow. That was a huge disappointment for me.
It's exactly what it wanted to be.
It was...
Great
it wanted to be an awful movie.
Darren,
you know what?
We'll talk about it another time. Then, but
I would say this falls into the same category as Get Out for me, where it was marketed as this major horror movie, and I came out of it. That's the impression
Again, maybe
I got.
I avoided the advertising, but I knew Del Toro always said, I'm making the classic gothic romance that I always wanted to make. And
see, if I went in...
He did that.
If I went in expecting that, then I might have enjoyed it more, but I was expecting
But why do killers always leave the evidence in their house? Why don't they get rid of it? And that final scene,
she's in the middle of nowhere. What's she going to do?
Burn it, throw it away.
At their whim.
The ground is sinking.
It takes all the classic familiar elements that I love from films like that of the past, and it just updated it brilliantly to me. It didn't have to put a spin on anything to me because he's such a visual master. It's just
it was pretty.
It's stunning to look at.
It's a visual feast and just nonsensical character motivations and stupid plot. And
I thought it was a gorgeous failure.
I had a screening last Halloween for a few people, and everyone enjoyed it. Either they were lying to me, or I don't know.
they were being nice to you.
Maybe
they're Canadian. They're being too polite.
I don't know. I thought that was great. But Shape of Water, the few images that I've seen from it look fantastic.
The trailer looks good, and the advanced press.
I can't wait.
Yeah, don't be knocking Del Toro too much.
And I mean,
even
he's pretty hit
Pacific Rim has its merits.
It has some merits, but it's not.
I enjoyed Pacific Rim for just monsters fighting robots. It's not a masterpiece by any means, but for me, it's fun. It's a guilty pleasure. I'll give it a pass for whatever reason, but I certainly understand why people don't like it. There's elements of it that I don't like. It's certainly no Pan's Labyrinth.
No. Well, after a masterpiece like Pan's Labyrinth, that's why Pacific Rim and Crimson Peak are so disappointing.
Yeah.
For me, anyways.
Come see, come saw, I guess. But yeah, I think this is shaping up to be one of the big fall releases I'm most looking forward to.
Agreed.
Excellent. Yeah, we'll be reviewing this on the show for sure. And then the next week, a small independent film called Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi.
Part 8. Oh, they just keep pumping these things out.
I haven't seen any of the other ones, but I think it's going to be good.
Saw, now Star Wars. Jeez.
What's a Jedi?
Yeah. Okay, we'll just skip that to the next one. On the 22nd is another movie I'm looking forward to. It's called Downsizing. It's from director Alexander Payne, who I've enjoyed all of his movies.
I love Alexander Payne.
Yeah, he's great. Citizen Ruth, Sideways.
Election. Black and white one.
Oh, and Nebraska.
Right.
Yeah, that's his last one.
Yeah, about Schmidt.
Oh my God, yeah. So he's
a fantastic director.
Yeah, I love this guy's work. This one stars Matt Damon, Kristen Wiig. Have you heard the premise to this?
I can't remember if I have or not.
It's pretty crazy. Technology has invented the way to shrink down objects and people. I guess people can choose now to be shrunken down and live in kind of a miniature world.
I did hear something a little bit about
That's really
the shrinking
really all I know. It's,
as long as they're not shrinking their kids.
Honey. I think that's kind of the basic premise of it, is people who want to escape our world and they're being shrunken down to live in a newly created society. And we'll see what it's about. I haven't seen anything from it.
It sounds crazy. I just know the premise. Very interesting.
Sounds some interesting ideas there for sure.
I guess the reaction to TIFF, Toronto Film Festival, was very mixed. It's kind of love it or hate it, which is, when I hear that, that's great. I love polarizing movies because
at least you'll know it's interesting. You may not love it, but
even that if you're doesn't on the dislike it side, there's got to be something there.
He's trying for something. That's called Downsizing. And then the next week after that is the film I brought up a few months ago on our News of the March. It's called Post. That's the Steven Spielberg one with Tom Hanks and Meryl Streep.
Yeah.
So definitely some Oscar bait coming in December. Sure. Yeah, hopefully it does open here before the end of the year. I know a lot of these release dates that I've been mentioning can be shuffled around. Who knows where we're going to get them. Sometimes in Canada we don't get them.
Yeah, these Oscar bait shows will open in LA and New York in mid-December, and we'll get them in Canada mid-January.
Exactly. It'd be nice. I hate it when they release everything in the same couple of weeks, all the Oscar movies, and you have to try to rush
busy
to the
Christmas
theater.
Season. And,
exactly. It's just impossible trying to see 3 or 4 movies every week.
Yeah.
So it's nice for them to spread it out so we can review them properly. But overall, I would say some decent films in the fall. Looking forward to it.
A lot to look forward to. Yeah.
My number ones, I would say, would be Star Wars in the Shape of Water.
Yeah, me too.
That's what I'm most looking forward to. And Blade Runner, of course.
Yes. Yeah. I'm curious about that movie, but for sure I echo your sentiments about Shape of Water and Star Wars. I look forward to the others you mentioned, but those are the 2 mostly anticipated for me.
What about you?
I eat up Spielberg like candy, so The Post for sure. Star Wars, massive fan. And
John Williams doing the score for both?
Yeah, The Post and Star Wars. That's the reason why he had to bow out of Ready Player One, is because it was conflicting with the schedule of those 2. So.
Right. That's too bad.
I'd love his score for Ready Player One.
Yeah, down indeed. All right, let's wrap it up with our fall preview and move on to our rant and rave section. Ivan has returned to join us. Ivan, what do you have today?
I got 2 movies that I've seen that were kind of smaller scale, but the first one will be Free Fire. So this one is Charlotte Copley, Armie Hammer, Brie Larson, and Cillian Murphy. And the movie is about a gun deal in a warehouse that just kind of goes wrong and just everybody starts shooting everybody.
It all takes place in one location.
Fire becomes for free.
Yes. Yeah, it's just Free Fire. Anyways, strong cast. I liked the movie. You can't really go much into this movie without spoilers just because it's all one location. But I really liked it. Really strong cast. I recommend it, watching it, give it a chance. I know I just gave it to Paul to check out, so...
Yeah, I've heard wild reviews on this, from terribly bad to pretty decent.
It wasn't spectacular, but I enjoyed it. I definitely think it's worth watching.
Okay.
And the next one is Colossal. Anne Hathaway and Jason Sudeikis. When I saw the trailers for this movie and then when I watched it, wow, I was not prepared for how different it was from what I expected. Like, I was expecting this to be more of a comedy movie with... Basically, the story is this girl finds out she controls if she goes to a park at a certain time of day, a monster appears on the other side of the world in China. And then she figures out that she can control it. And then you're thinking, oh, okay, this could be more of a comedy movie, kind of having fun with this. But wow, it's kind of a darker movie because it's mainly about personal issues of people's lives. Like her personal issues, Jason Sudeikis and his character. Like, the monsters don't really play a huge role in this movie.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No, it's just a backdrop.
Yeah. But still, I really liked it. I thought it was quite interesting and good acting, so I recommend it.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. One thing I should have mentioned is Jason Sudeikis. He has kind of a wild swing in his character, don't you think?
Oh, yeah. I agree.
Moment.
It is one of those things where slow burn.
Exactly. He's kind of a bitter guy, but he's hiding it a lot in the beginning. Yeah. So, yeah, it's a pretty good movie. I recommend it, too.
Definitely. So,
cool.
Those are mine, too.
All right. Colossal and Free Fire. And Paul, what do you got?
What I got is I've got 3 quick hits of animation. I'll start out with my first, which is a steaming pile of RANT. I had the unfortunate opportunity to purchase and watch Batman and Harley Quinn. What a fucking waste of time. For me, the problem is my favorite incarnation of Batman is Batman the Animated Series, which is done by Bruce Timm and Paul Dini. Bruce Timm's involved in this, so my hopes are up. I quickly come to realize that maybe the genius behind that animated series was Paul Dini, because I think back to The Killing Joke, the animated movie, and what was the best part of that? The direct adaptation. What was the weak part of that? The new stuff that was added in. It actually makes me rethink just blind buying any DC animated movie, which is crazy because I used to be so strong, and this is awful. Purely awful. And I don't think it's because I'm viewing a similar tone as an adult. I think they lost the tone, because one thing I always found about the animated series, which this is supposed to be a loose connection to, is that it was always smart. It was always understated. It was witty. This has none of that. It's outright slapstick. It's silly. It's juvenile. Everything about this movie just seems off. Like, it just not an enjoyable experience at all.
So glad I borrowed it from you.
At least you're watching it for free.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's the thing, is it just makes me think that maybe the direct adaptations like The Dark Knight, those are the good ones because they've got solid material to work off of. Whereas a lot of the brand new stuff like that, New Gods, was an alternate take on the big 3, like Wonder Woman, Batman, and Superman, like an alternate reality. And I was looking forward to it, and that was fairly weak. I don't know. For me, if you're a Batman fan and if you enjoyed the Batman the Animated Series, which is great, avoid this at all costs. I didn't have high expectations for it, but I thought, well, I'll probably think it's in Ivan's rating system. But it wasn't even that.
Not even a meh.
No, I will never watch this again. Ever.
Wow.
I think I'd burn the disc before I watched it again.
Okay, it's a big skip.
That is a big skip. And then my next 2 are bigger animated movies from the last year or so. I'll start out with The Surprise. My wife and I watched Secret Life of Pets, and I came into this not really expecting too much. I was pleasantly surprised. Louis C.K.'s in there. They've got a really good cast of characters that fit. They get all the kind of demeanors and actions of the animals. If you're an animal lover and whatnot, you'll like this. It's charming. I wouldn't say it's Oscar worthy at all. Like,
I've heard it's kind of Toy Story with animals.
Kind of, and that's a really good way of putting it. And I think go into it not really expecting too much, and you'll come out of it enjoying it. Like I said, I just enjoyed it a lot more than I really thought I would.
I caught it a couple months ago. I thought it was kind of awful, personally. I couldn't wait for it to end. I was really bored, and I remembered it. I think this got some okay reviews. Let's check it out. I recorded it, and yeah, it was a tough slog to get through for me.
Yeah, it's solid 5 out of 10. I wouldn't say I loved it by any means, but it was all right.
I'll accept that 5 out of 10.
Considering I watched Batman and Harley Quinn, this is Oscar worthy compared to that. And then the other one, just to round out my quick hit on animations, is I finally caught up with Trolls, which is another movie that I wasn't really all that interested in seeing. I was curious, but it wasn't high on my list. We watched it, and it's kind of your typical DreamWorks kind of movie where it's really largely forgettable. It's very of its time, which is something that I've heard kind of even a criticism of Shrek is like, it's playing on everything that's current, like it's current jokes and everything. So in 5 years, it kind of loses its relevance. I can totally see that with this movie. And it's not smart. In the first minute, you really already know the plot and where it's going to go. It's got some catchy music. Visually, it looks really good. Like the texturing and the animation and everything is really good. But I would watch this before Batman and Harley Quinn, but that's really not saying much. So it was okay. But when the best of the bunch out of the 3 I've mentioned is Secret Life of Pets, which Darren hated, it's got to tell you something. So
Right. Not a terribly strong year for animation so far, is it?
Not really, no. Last year had a lot of memorable, like even just visually memorable movies like Kubo and the Two Strings and, had a lot of really strong installments. And then, this year, not really too much that I've gotten excited about, that's for sure. Like Cartoon Brew has some stuff coming up, but that's not even until next year. So,
right.
So, that's my 3.
Okay. Secret Life of Pets, Batman and Harley Quinn, and
Trolls.
And Trolls.
I'm sorry.
No.
Bring us some better stuff next time.
A steaming pile of RANT and a couple of mild kind of okays.
Some adequacies.
Okay. Darren, would you like to go next?
Yes, I would, Ron. I will go next. I recently wrapped up a couple of TV series, so I'll talk about the last season of each of those and the overall tone of the series, I guess. First one would be The Leftovers. Have you seen the end of it too, Ron?
Just the first 2 seasons.
Just the first 2 seasons. Yeah. So third season was fantastic. I loved this show. And season 3, just takes the story to a whole nother place. They explore some really good ideas.
Do you want to try to give a brief synopsis on what the show's about?
Don't even want to say. Like if you're going to watch this show, you're going to watch it, and if you're not, you're not.
Yeah, good point.
I'll say tonally, it's really just about faith when it comes down to it, and what you believe and why you believe it and why you're dedicated to it and what makes faith important to you or not important to you. And we've had a rash recently of movies that are preaching to the choir, things like Miracles from Heaven and The Shack. Those are movies made for Christians who are already Christian and confident in their Christianity, and they want to watch a movie that makes them feel good about what they believe in.
I haven't heard of either one of those. Do they start,
probably a good thing.
Do they star Kirk Cameron?
They have bigger name stars, and I don't know how they got these stars to be in them. And from what I understand, Jennifer Garner gives a very good performance in Miracles from Heaven, but it looks like a terrible, shitty movie, horribly written, horribly conceived of, and The Shack looks absolutely atrocious. But I know people have seen them and love these movies because they're the target audience. This, like Martin Scorsese's Silence, is a real movie about, in this case, a TV series about faith, and really explores faith in an intelligent way, and is far more appealing to me than trash like The Shack or Miracles from Heaven. I will also say it comes across to me as Damon Lindelof's, I don't want to say apology, but kind of recovery for Lost. So, I mean, Lost, and I love Lost, it's a great show. Fans of Lost will know it kind of has 2 endings. It has a character ending, which is wonderful, and then it has kind of an island mythology ending involving the grotto, the cave, the water, which is just terrible. And Damon Lindelof always maintained, no, the show was always about the characters, and sure, and we understand you had a great character ending. Right. But we haven't been watching this for 6 seasons just for the characters. We love what's going on in the island. It's so intriguing, so mysterious, so original, and to just be so lazy with what it all boils down to was a big disappointment. In this, what I will call the mythology ending was really quite clever and really interesting. And I think it's just such a perfect season, perfect ending to the show. If you caught the first season and you liked it and thought, oh, I don't know what's going to happen. Do they need to talk about more than what was in the first season? Seasons 2 and 3 really explore it in interesting ways. I mean, just great characters, great cast, great ideas. The show's not going to be for everyone. Watch the first season, and if you can't quite get on board, then you're not going to care for the rest of it.
And this was a series finale.
Series finale, that's it.
So you
and
like the way it wrapped up?
Yeah, and it's really doesn't need to be any longer than this. They weren't even sure they were going to make this third season. They weren't sure if they were going to get renewed after season 2. And season 2 had a fairly satisfying ending. If it had ended with season 2, that could have been good. I mean, you want to see more, but it ended so beautifully that had that been it, I would have been satisfied. Mm-hmm. Season 3, even more so. So many things from the beginning of the series pay off later on. My understanding is the writer of the book that it's based on didn't originally want some of the things to be explored that get explored in season 3. He maybe wanted it to be more ambiguous, mysterious, but he must have approved it at some point because here we have it. And anyways, fantastic series and great show. Damon Lindelof, my hat's off to you. Big recommendation for me.
Nice. I look forward to checking it out. I did enjoy the first 2 seasons quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. HBO, one good show down. Hopefully you've got something good to replace it with.
I know. They're going to be scrambling next year before Game of Thrones ends to keep everybody's subscription happy.
For sure.
Yeah, this is a show that I hadn't even heard about it until you were talking about it, Dex, and then on a couple other podcasts, they were really high on the first couple seasons and just getting into this last season. And yeah, I'm really intrigued by it. So
yeah, I think you like it. It's highly, highly entertaining and very thought-provoking.
And especially when you're likening it to, well, not necessarily directly to Lost, but I love that show. So just knowing Lindelof and...
Yeah, there's comparisons to be made. It's very different from Lost, but there's certainly comparisons to be made. So
yeah, I want to see it.
Excellent. What else you got?
All right, the second series that I just finished the final season of was Bates Motel.
What season is that on now?
Just finished its 5th season. 50 episodes. You guys know I'm a big Hitchcock fan, so I was intrigued by the series. Have I ever mentioned that before?
Maybe, yeah.
Once or twice? Mm-hmm. I often say when you have a classic property, movie, whatever, with well-known, distinctive surprise or twist to it, if you're going to remake it, you have to change the twist. You have to find something else, some different way to do it. Brian De Palma was always good with that when he was remaking Hitchcock. Things like Dress to Kill or Body Double. He takes some of the things that are so well known about Vertigo or Rear Window or Psycho and plays around with them and turns your expectations upside down. And Bates Motel did a little bit of that too. I kind of like what they did. It really takes the kind of story we know well from Psycho and really expands on it. Marion Crane does appear in the final season of the show, played by, of all people, Rihanna.
Really?
And she's quite good. And I can't say enough about the 2 good leads. Vera Farmiga as Norma Bates, the mother of Norman Bates, played by Freddie Highmore. They are both so good in this show. Freddie Highmore must have studied a ton of Anthony Perkins. He just channels a young Anthony Perkins so well. He's got all the mannerisms and ways of speaking and facial expressions and body language down to a T. He's so good. Vera Farmiga is fantastic. She's always been one of my favorite actresses, but as an obsessive, overbearing, loving, interfering mother, she's so good. If I have one regret for the series, it's that it feels like they're going to cross a certain line at some point with these 2 characters. And there's a little ambiguity there, but to me, they should have, if you're going to interpret the ambiguity one way, they should have just come right out and been clear about it.
You mean like a certain taboo?
A certain taboo.
Okay.
Which really, I shouldn't say there's too much ambiguity because they hint at possibility, but there's not enough there for you to say, oh, in my opinion, they did it. They really didn't.
Right.
But I think they should have crossed the line. It would have made the series more interesting. They did.
It's the last season. Turn people off if you want. Who cares?
Hey, if you like that kind of thing and you're a Game of Thrones fan, then
sure.
You might find some enjoyment in Bates Motel.
Right.
Up to a certain point. They took the story in different ways than Psycho does, which is a good thing. Psycho is just such a masterpiece. It's such a classic ending that to do things differently is weaker. However, I can't imagine a different ending for the series than the way it ends. I won't ruin what it is, but I will say it's not the same as Psycho if you're anticipating it to be the same. So there's a lot to like here for Psycho fans in terms of, really expanding on the story and finding different things. I mean, they made 5 seasons out of it, so there's a lot involving townsfolk and kind of side stories, which sound like they're padding it a little too much, but they really aren't. There's a lot of interesting things. There's a half-brother for Norman Bates. There's Norma's brother. There's a drug trade in the town. The story as a whole has been relocated to the Pacific Northwest instead of kind of the central California location of Psycho. And there's a lot of water bodies to bury bodies in and so on. There's a great supporting cast in the show too. Olivia Cooke, who has shown up in a lot of terrible horror movies lately, is very good in this series. It's not a big commitment at 50 episodes. If you're interested, give it a check. It's there's a lot to like here. Megan liked the finale a lot more than I did, like the ending to the series. So, I mean, I don't dislike the way it ended. Like I say, it's the perfect ending for the show. I'm comparing it to Psycho, and that's big shoes to fill.
Yeah, I'd like to catch up with that. I've heard such good things about it. It's probably on Netflix, right?
Yeah, the first four seasons are on Netflix currently, yeah.
Because that's how Melanie's watched it, and she's loved the first 4.
Cool. So it was Bates Motel and The Leftovers. Okay, for mine, start off with 2 movies. Caught up with T2 Trainspotting, the sequel, of course, to the huge smash from the 90s. Are you guys a big fan of that movie?
I enjoyed it, but I've not seen it a second time ever.
I loved it when I was younger. I haven't seen it in a long time, but I really wanted to see the sequel.
It's directed by Danny Boyle again, written by John Hodge. It stars the cast from the first one: Ewan McGregor, Johnny Lee Miller, Ewan Brebner, Robert Carlyle, and Kelly MacDonald. The plot? I have written here, I'm not quite sure. I enjoyed the film. I don't know if you remember how the last one finished, with Renton ripping off his friends and heading off on his own. The movie kind of takes place 20 years after that, with him returning home finally and seeing how everyone else has been doing without him. And that's pretty much what the movie is about. You know how the first one was so much about addiction and heroin, and it really had something to say. This movie, I guess, is about still dealing with addiction after 20 years, but it just doesn't have that same potency that the first one had. Even the songs, it's kind of remixing some of the old songs from the first one in different ways.
So it seems a bit like a retread in some ways?
Total retread. And yet I kind of enjoyed it because I like all the performers in it. Robert Carlyle as Begbie. He's kind of a one-of-a-kind cartoonish character. He's still so ridiculous. But yeah, I enjoyed the performances and the actors. It's just as I was watching it, I was just like, what is this movie really trying to be about? Is it about hanging on, dealing with your addictions from the past? Is it about finding new addictions to take over the old ones?
Which is what I was almost expecting, is, kind of trading in your addictions of youth for, addictions of adulthood, where you get adults who are addicted to working out or whatever.
Sure, porn. Yeah, and that's a part of it. Yeah, and gets into a bit of that. But again, it's just, the first one was such a wallop. Hit you so hard. It's with that Iggy Pop right from the beginning. And I didn't have a problem with it. Do you think it was more just like delivering
something that they thought the fans would enjoy, as opposed to coming up with something as unique and hard-hitting and original as the first?
No, I think it's still based from Irvine Walsh. I created the characters for the books, and I think a lot of this might be taken from sequels from books.
Okay.
So I don't know if it's all just straight to screen, but all in all, it's just it's more of a trifle. It's you can watch it when it comes out and check it out. And overall, I just couldn't see what the point of it after all this time of really making this movie.
It doesn't stand on its own merits. Basically, it just
you need the first film for sure.
It's like it was such a cult favorite, the first one, that they thought time to revisit it again, and
which is too bad, because the first one, at least for me, I had never seen anything like it. Yeah, the visuals and characters and just grittiness. I loved it from the first, so it's too bad that it's just not more imaginative. It's just kind of going down the same dirty toilet.
Yeah, overall, I'd say skip it unless you're a huge fan of the first movie and you're curious to see these characters and where they're at. But definitely not as good as the first one.
Yeah, like I said, I haven't seen the first one since the 90s, so I haven't been that desperate to revisit these characters. Probably I shouldn't bother with this one. And I do like Danny Boyle.
Again, it's not a boring film, and it's not badly made, and the characters are fun. I just don't see the point of bringing them all back 20 years later.
Yeah.
Not necessary. And it's too bad, because there's so many iconic scenes out of the first one, like the baby on the ceiling and whatnot, that, you'd hate to dilute that.
Yeah, this new one doesn't have anything like that, really.
So, that's unfortunate. I still want to see it, but it's too bad.
It's not even trying to be the same movie as the first one, how that was kind of hit you like heroin does, right? Yeah. What it would be like to do that. That movie was kind of like a visceral punch. This movie is much more laid back and contemplative. Where are we now? And it's fine. I just thought it might have more meat to it. Yeah. Mild rave. But a much stronger rave for me, my next one, would be The Founder. This is directed by John Lee Hancock, stars Michael Keaton, and of course, this is the true story of Ray Kroc, a slick salesman who turned two brothers' innovative fast food eatery into the biggest restaurant business in the world, McDonald's.
I'm
you guys
super interested
seen this
in
movie?
this. No,
Me too.
It's
Yeah.
really great.
I really want to see it.
It's fascinating just to see behind the scenes of how this empire began and the humble origins of it all. And I think a lot of people out there would assume that the owners of McDonald's and the guys who made all the money with McDonald's had the name McDonald attached to them. They don't. It was all taken over by this guy, Ray Kroc, who Michael Keaton plays. And he's kind of got that Walter White thing going for him where you're rooting for the character at the beginning and then you're like, I don't know if I can keep rooting for this guy. It's just the more money and more power he gets, the greed really corrupts him. It's a great performance. Michael Keaton's killer in it, and a big reason to see the movie. But also, the two guys that the two brothers he's taking advantage of are played by Nick Offerman and John Carroll Lynch, who are both so great in it as the original brothers. And you really kind of learn how McDonald's became what it was and the difference between restaurants before them and afterwards, and how innovative they really were in setting up what McDonald's is based on, which is the efficiency of the restaurant, and how they tried using mathematical equations to make things efficient, where everybody should stand and where the shake machine should be and where the fry counter should be, and how they tried dozens of variables to make sure that the restaurant ran as efficiently as it could. And it's all really fascinating stuff until these poor guys are taking totally advantage of. It
sounds more interesting now hearing you talk about it than I even thought. So
yeah,
I can't
it's
wait
a great
to see
American story of it's almost like, remember the movie Tucker with Jeff Bridges?
Yeah.
How about the guy with the great idea,
the visionary,
who just wants to do something great for people, and just how his plans can be taken over by sleazy businessmen.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's a great American story if you're looking at it that way. It's a great performance piece by Michael Keaton, and I think anybody who's ever eaten McDonald's, and it's so ubiquitous in our world culture, it's just fascinating to see where it all began.
Who knew McDonald's had an origin? I just thought it had always existed.
It's pretty much. You'd almost think so, right? That it's only been around for maybe 70 years?
Not even. Wasn't it founded in the 60s?
I think it's in the mid-50s. Or
50s?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, not very long, but...
Worth sinking your teeth into.
There you go.
We can always count on Paul.
Okay. All right. Why don't we wrap it up with that? Next time, we'll be back to discuss the new adaptation of Stephen King's novel, It, which is currently raking it in at the box office. Until then, please subscribe and give us a rating on our iTunes and Apple Podcasts. You can like and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if interested, you can always comment and search for our past reviews on our website at whywesee.movies@libsyn.com. Thanks for listening.
So long.
Ciao, ciao for now.
Lights.
Sayonara.